Wilson.
Let me know when you're ready.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Madam City Clerk, would you be so kind as to call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Jean Goss,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Edward Garcia,
Present.
Councilmember Rachel Arismendi,
Present?
Councilmember Kelly Krebs,
Here.
and Councilmember Robert Parkhurst.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, there's a quorum for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Before we stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to ask you to indulge me for a couple of minutes. Today is Flag Day, after all, and so I went looking for something to say about it, and I found a very nice statement at the White House website, because President Biden did, as all presidents do, issued a proclamation declaring this to be National Flag Day week. So I'd like to read a little bit about it, and when I conclude, we'll get up and we'll say the pledge. Way back in June 14, 1771, do I need these glasses? It's size 18 font. I'm going to try without. You know, you got to be able to do 18, right? The Continental Congress passed a resolution adopting a flag for our new nation, the United States of America. The resolution specified 13 alternating red and white stripes with 13 stars on a blue field. The stars represented the colonies that declared independence, and in the years since, they've grown into 50 United States, which comprise our great country today. For centuries, mariners looked to the stars to guide them across the seas, just as Americans and people across the globe look to our flag as a guiding symbol of freedom, opportunity, and hope. On Flag Day and during National Flag Week, we celebrate the journey of progress represented in our banner and pay tribute to the inspiration it gives Americans at home and abroad. Our flag belongs to all Americans, and its red, white, and blue colors are woven into a rich tapestry of different cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs, which connects us and honors our shared history. Old Glory has flown around the world in times of war and in times of peace. It has traveled to the moon and to the stars and to Mars. It has sailed on ships and flown on planes. It waves high above the White House, courthouses, post offices, schools, and homes across the nation, above our embassies, our military bases overseas, an enduring beacon of democracy. From the Revolutionary War to the modern age, American service members have fought bravely under the symbol of our flag, and those who give their last full measure of devotion are wrapped in it, in its broad stripes and bright stars as they are laid to rest. We honor those who serve our country in uniform and pay homage to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Every day, the American flag instills pride, reminding us of the ideals upon which our nation was founded and the values for which we stand. As we pledge our allegiance to the Star-Spangled Banner and the legacy it holds in our history, let us continue the work of perfecting our union so that together we can deliver the promise of America for all Americans. To commemorate the adoption of our flag, the Congress, by joint resolution on August 3, 1949, designated June 14th each year as Flag Day and requested the President issue an annual proclamation calling for its observance and for the display of the flag of the United States on all federal government buildings. The Congress also requested by joint resolution on June 9, 1966, that the President issue annually a proclamation designating the week in which June 14th occurs as National Flag Week and calling upon all citizens of the United States to display the flag during that week. On June 10, 2022, President Biden proclaimed June 14, 2022 as Flag Day and the week starting June 12, 2022 as National Flag Week. He directed the appropriate officials to display the flag on all federal government buildings during this week and urged all Americans to observe Flag Day and National Flag Week by displaying the flag and honoring all of our brave service members and revering those who gave their last full measure of devotion defending our freedoms. He encouraged the people of the United States to observe with pride and all due ceremony those days from Flag Day through Independence Day, set aside by Congress as a time to honor the American spirit, to celebrate our history, and the foundational values we strive to uphold, and to publicly recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. And now I'd like you to rise with me and cite that pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Okay, moving right along. We have an agenda in front of us. I'd like to see if there are any ideas for amending it and or approval of it, please.
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Also would like to get a motion for report, I'm one item ahead. Now we turn to our city attorney for a report out from our closed session we just had.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session on 3 items. All 3 items were for anticipated litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9B. And for all 3 items, the council took no disclosable action. No reportable action, apologies.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. And now we wanted to, I need to get an approval or a motion for approval for reading resolutions and ordinances.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And we also have a copy of minutes from May 24th. I've already looked at mine and saw no alterations or any
Mr. Mayor,
ideas. Yes, sir.
I submitted a comment on the minutes. It was when we were discussing the Sierra Madre lighting and maintenance district number 1. I asked that the minutes note that several members had expressed concern with the design of that district and asked staff options to investigate and modify it.
Okay, and you have this, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
So we have an amendment to the minutes. Are there any others? Okay, do I have a motion for approval as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the meeting minutes for the 24th have been approved as amended. And that brings us to Mayor and City Council reports. Who would like to go first?
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
We were all shy today.
I guess so.
So there was a senior community commission meeting that I attended. And as always, that commission is very energized and getting a lot of work done. Some of the things they discussed were having a plaque placed at the Hart House, potentially for Nancy Walsh and all her contributions that she had made to the city and as well as the seniors that live here. She spearheaded the program to get funds in to then feed seniors that need meals. So there's a lot of meals that are being served to seniors, and she was the one that was spearheading that, so they greatly appreciate that. A few things on their calendar in the future. There will be the Older American open house tomorrow from 4:30 to 7:30, honoring every older American in the town. There's no set agenda. Show up and enjoy refreshments and appetizers. There's a seniors rock concert on July 10th, a community yard sale on August 13th, and a couple other things they discussed was that the Hart House is getting a lot of use since it's one of the only facilities in town that people can have events. So they want to look into potentially either finding another facility or maybe talking about leases on our current facilities to make sure that our residents are able to rent a facility for certain reasons and not wear down the senior Hart House. Services are up. They have a lot more individuals coming in for all of the services. And this was the last meeting that Commissioner Sally Olson was on the commission, so we bid her a goodbye. That's it.
Who else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So I watched the Planning Commission meeting from this last cycle, and I think that's true of most council, but just wanted to recap that the agenda item was solely with respect to the proposed Meadows project, and the Planning Commission, as expected and as we've come to expect, went through the items on the agenda with great detail and great interest and obviously great preparation. Just to report out the sort of three main concerns that were expressed in the meeting, I think were relating to the nature of the zoning of the various parcels, with some of the folks on the Planning Commission expressing that they would like the parcel to the north of the retreat center to be zoned open space. There was resistance to that from the applicant. The other two sort of key issues that got a lot of attention were the relative size of square footage of the proposed homes relative to the size of the lots, and then quite a bit of discussion around how that exactly would be calculated. So that also needs to be resolved. So that's there were also other concerns raised, but those were the ones that took the majority of the time, and the meeting did conclude without decision on any of the action items on the agenda, and I believe that they are intending to bring those up again at their next meeting, or perhaps the meeting after. I don't remember the exact date, but that is progress on that. Also, I think in the intervening time since our last meeting, a number of us attended the Mount Wilson Trail Race, and that was back on its regular time over Memorial Day weekend, and it was a great event, well attended. People seemed to be having a great time. I did not run it this year. I may have retired, so but I think a number of our folks in the city did. Our city attorney, I think our fire chief, and I believe our finance director. So we had quite the representation on the mountain from our city staff. So all good, and I still can't believe the people that win it in an hour. So that's just always amazing to me. But
Easy.
anyway, so it was a great day, and it was a perfect day for the race. Cool and overcast, and so it was just a really good time. Glad that it's back.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Member Parkhurst.
so it'll be a shock. There was a Clean Power Alliance meeting since the last one. It was just a board meeting and nothing to report out on that. Also, there was the Natural Resources Commission had their meeting. It was a really interesting meeting. I know they're here today to give us an update, but I may steal Chair Robinson's thunder just a little bit. At that meeting, we talked about the San Gabriel Valley COG, and they've got a energy assessment program out there called ESGV, and I'll provide that to our clerk to put in the minutes. It looks like a very interesting program. You get a free energy assessment for your home. We also had a presentation on the Citizens Climate from the Citizens Climate Lobby on HR 2307, which is the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, where our Congressman Chu is a co-sponsor, and some discussion on water conservation. There was also, I think we're going to talk about it later, but there were a number of us that went to a reception from Congressmember Chu, and I'm going to leave the mayor to talk about that one, I think. And then I also watched the Planning Commission meeting, all 3 hours, 44 minutes of it.
And 42 seconds.
Is it really? Okay, I didn't remember the exactness. Yeah. So yeah, I would echo Councilmember Krieb's comments. There's a lot of good discussion going on. I look forward to having all of the issues get put out on the table on this, so that they can be discussed and move forward. I do look forward for the commission to really evaluate the project and come forward with us for the full project, and not with kind of a vote if amended type of thing. They're the experts. They know about massing and floor area ratio and angle planes, which I learned a lot as liaison last year, which I still don't fully understand. So with that, I turn it back to you.
Councilmember?
I'll be very brief. In addition to the Mount Wilson Trail Race, we also have had our concerts in the park, so thank you Community Services and all our volunteers. I did not go to Pat O'Brien, even though my husband's a diehard, so he came out by himself with his buddy, but it's just really great to see our community services and our activities back in action. I also wanted to share that our VFW Post 3208 had their Memorial Day celebration, or I should say memorial service, and it was good to see the turnout, but it was also quite heartbreaking to hear how many of the veterans have passed in this past year alone. And lastly, our strategic planning session was yesterday, and really engaging conversation amongst our council and also our staff, and I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Thank you. Okay, folks, I have kind of a substantial report, and I just ask you to bear with me. And do I use my glasses? Okay, I don't think so. Back on the 25th, I attended the County Sanitation District meeting, and these are somewhat pro forma, somewhat boring meetings, except in this one, they brought back for, not for discussion, but kind of a generalized report that progress is being made in the development of a plan to recycle water from the sanitation district water treatment plants by injecting that water after full treatment into the groundwater, thereby supplementing 30 to 40% of the needs of MWD. Another way of putting this is it's called toilet to tap. That is, the water that's now coming out of the sewage treatment plants and going into the ocean would be redirected into the groundwater supply. And this, by the way, is done commonly across the country. But we're not doing it, and it would, it's kind of help on the way. It's probably the most viable way that we can, at least as a first step, take on climate change and some of the challenges we're having here in California with these droughts. So more on that later. There's no plan in place, but the discussion is ongoing, and there should be some kind of public discussion on that at Sanitation District or at MWD or both within the next year, and I certainly will bring more information to you when I know more. Yeah, I got to go to the Mount Wilson Trail Race, and my colleagues were there. We had a ball. We had a lot of fun. I was thrilled because the mayor gets to help Pete Sibrel hand out the trail race awards to the winners, and that was always exciting. And boy, there were a lot of winners at all the various age ranges, and it was just a lot of fun. And just wanted to congratulate the Mount Wilson Trail Race committee, Pete, of course, and all the volunteers that work with him so doggedly for so long. And of course, all the city staff that was involved in helping pull this off. I know Community Services, I know the police and the fire and Sierra Madre Search and Rescue. I'm probably forgetting people, but it was, the upshot of it all is just another first-class city event, and I just can't say enough about it. I also watched the Planning Commission meeting, the 3-hour, 44-minute. I mean, I might have skipped a couple of sections of it. I was at home. I think the Dodgers were on, so I think I was going back and forth. I was watching it online, and I agree with the assessments of my colleagues. I really don't have anything else to add to that. And June 4th, I was the guest of honor at the British Home here in town for their annual fair, and I actually had me show up at the beginning and officially open the fair, which was really kind of fun. And I just wanted to thank Debbie Ross in particular for reaching out, and for the board of the British Home for their graciousness and their hospitality. It was really, truly special. And I strongly recommend, if you've never been to the British Home Fair, it's every year, annual. Just look it up, and it's well worth a look. It's kind of fun. Last Saturday, I did attend the funeral service for former Mayor Nancy Walsh. I was honored to be able to speak, representing the city. As part of my remarks, I shared a message provided to me from Senior Community Commission Chair Pat Holland, detailing former Mayor Walsh's prodigious contributions to the welfare of seniors in Sierra Madre. Nancy will truly be missed. And yesterday, just to tag along to Councilmember Ismeni's remarks, we had a very substantial development here in the city. We had our strategic planning session, which we've been planning for some time to have. And that's when we got all the council together and all the managers that work for the various departments and our city manager. We all got together, and this strategic planning session was facilitated by a professional management consultant by the name of Don St. John. And we spent 4 hours kind of going over, kind of finding out where everybody was at, trying to think about strategic goals, strategic vision, and implementation. How do we implement those goals? And we made some significant progress. I think, speaking personally, I felt like I picked up some perspectives that I had been lacking prior to that meeting. Mr. St. John will be bringing back within about a week and a half, a full report with action items for us that we will then revisit, I believe, as a council at some point in the near future. But it was, I thought, a very productive session. And now I've been asked to share some city announcements and events that are coming up. And now I got to get my glasses on. So the library's summer event started this week. They have multiple events for children and adults. There are flyers in the back of the room here that list those events. This Sunday's concert in the park is Elvis, sponsored by the Webb Martin Group. Enjoy your Father's Day with the King of Rock. Music starts at 5 p.m. That sounds like fun. I'll be up in Oregon at the time.
But your chair will need to be there well before 5 o'clock.
Yes, your chair's gonna have to be there a lot sooner than 5. Tomorrow, as Mayor Pro Tem said, the Senior Commission is having its open house at the Hart Park House. Again, that is the Older American of the Year open house. It starts at 4:30 and goes to what, 7:30? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yes.
4:30 to 7:30. And also, tomorrow the fire department is having their wildlife educational workshop at the fire station. Preparation and prevention go hand in hand. There is still time to register for the Chipper and Green Waste Day on June 25th, and we have flyers again in the back if you like the details. And finally, Community Services Commission here at City Hall still has 2 expected vacancies, so we encourage members of the public to apply. Our library board too has 2 anticipated vacancies. Again, we encourage members of the public to apply. And our Natural Resources Commission has 1 current vacancy and 1 anticipated vacancy, for a total of 2 vacancies as well. So all those are obviously pivotal opportunities for people to participate and have a significant impact on the quality of life here in the city of Sierra Madre. And also, I've been asked to share a notice of construction. In case you've been up on Grandview in the last few days, you know that there's a lot going on up there. The fiscal year 2021-2022 street improvement project is currently underway. Please be advised that the following streets will be impacted: North Mountain Trail, Sierra Madre Boulevard to Grandview Avenue, and Grandview Avenue, Cannon Avenue to Santa Anita Avenue. And I was up there the other day walking, and it was, they're really doing an awful lot of work at this time. The project will also consist of treating the existing streets with the grinding and removal of asphalt, to be followed with a new resurfaced layer of asphalt. Some existing intersections will be receiving new Americans with Disability Act ramps with repaired sidewalks. The estimated date of completion for all of this is June 24th. For your safety and that of the construction crews, please be observant of all street construction signs, detours, and road closures. And finally, having to do with the water main up in the canyon, the 12-inch water main construction continues on Mount Trail and Sturdivant Drive. The estimated completion date for that project is June 30th. Those of you who are up there, thank you for your forbearance. Thank you for your patience. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that concludes my report. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Now I get to do something kind of fun. This friend of mine, this colleague I've been working with now for 8 years and 2 months, Councilmember Rochelle Arizmendi, was honored by Congresswoman Judy Chu, what was 2 weeks ago, the last week? And she was selected as our Woman of the Year in the Congressional District. So this is a huge honor for her, and obviously for us by osmosis. And so I'm very proud of her. I think she's well deserved, and we have the city also in honor of her recognition by the Congresswoman. We've also created a certificate of recognition that I would like to share with her now. And I'll just
Let's go.
Certificate recognition, City of Sierra Madre, Rachel is 2022 Congressional Woman of the Year. The City Council extends its sincerest congratulations. Presented this first day of June 2022 by the Sierra Madre City Council, Mayor Gene Goss, Mayor Pro Tem Edward Garcia, and Council members Rachel Arizmendi, Kelly Creed, and Robert Parkhurst. Thank you.
I actually got this certificate then, and they took it back.
We didn't want to have two floating around out there. That'd be too, that'd make her head too big, I think. And now we're very pleased and privileged to have a representative from the Natural Resources Commission here to share a report with us on what they've been doing over there. I believe it's Mr. Robinson, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you. This is the first time I've ever made a report to you guys. I am the chairman of the Natural Resources Commission. There's a lot of things in regards to climate that will impact Sierra Madre directly. It's very interesting. We have very interesting conversations, and anybody that wants to volunteer and help join us with these conversations, it would be great. I just watched a very sobering meeting of the Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District that happened in May, and was talking about the record drought that we're in. There's professionals that have been doing water work for 40 years and said they have not seen anything so severe as what we're facing today. And it's a message that is not getting out, I don't think, to people seriously enough. I have a neighbor down the street, looks like he's putting in a brand new front lawn with irrigation, and it seems rather short-sighted to me. But, you know, there's no rules against doing something like that. But I think that, you know, we're going to have to come up with some policies that will make meaningful changes to the way that we use water and incentivize people not to over-irrigate their property. Is going to, you know, some people that get their water from the state are being limited to 1 day a week of watering. Right now, we're in Sierra Madre, we have 3 days, and they're recommending that we should really go to 2 days. And also talking about, you know, if it gets bad enough, there may be no landscape watering that you'll be able to do. You'll be able to water trees by hand, but lawns are they're gonna go the way of the dodo bird if we keep going forward with all this, you know, extended drought, which is just unmatched. We did get an interesting briefing on HR 2307, which was the carbon tax, which is basically that they would add a tax to carbon-producing fuels like natural gas, gasoline, oil, stuff like that, and then everybody as a shareholder would be rebated back a percentage of this money. The government wouldn't be making any money off of this. They would collect the money as you use these fuels, and then they would rebate it. They would rebate it back to us as citizens. So if you do a good job and say that you get rid of your gas guzzling car and you buy an electric car, or you insulate your house, or you do something that makes you use less of a smaller carbon footprint, you'll be a net gain. And then, but if you don't do anything about it and you just go about the way you like to live your life, you're going to end up paying more. So it's kind of giving people an economic incentive for them to do the right thing and try to reduce your carbon footprint. So this is something that's happening in our Congress. I have no idea if those guys will ever get anything done. I hope that they would. But the one other issue that really struck home for me, I was a supervisor for Glendale Water and Power for 28 years. And the energy sector is something that's very important to me. And the proposed changes to the solar NEM 3.0 was very disturbing, because it looked like if they had gone forward with what they wanted to do, it was going to be a tax basically on how much solar that you have connected at your house. So that it would be a huge disincentive for you to get solar. And I think that it's really going in the wrong direction, but then they backed off on it, and we haven't heard what the next plan is going to be. So as a commission, we were going to make a recommendation to City Council to oppose it, but there's really nothing for us to oppose at this point. We're waiting for them to show us the new plan or what they're going to do in regards to solar. They would argue that solar customers are causing unsolar customers $5 to $10 a month extra on their bill to pay for the discount that the solar customers are getting. To me, it seems like the state of California was trying to incentivize people to get solar, but then they kind of shoved it off onto the private utilities, and then they're stuck with, well, we're giving these people a discount, we still have to maintain our system. Where's the money going to come from? So I think that I'd like to see, if personally, if I was in King or whatever, I would like to see something that keeps the solar industry up and running, and maybe the state of California needs to kick in some more money to the utilities so that the solar industry doesn't get decimated. One of the other things that we were involved in was the wildlife policy. You know, we got to keep the bears out of our garbage. We got to figure out a way to have, you know, I'd like to see citywide where we get the garbage cans that lock and that unlock when the garbage truck picks it up. I think that would go a long way to keeping these bears out of people's yards if they know they're not going to get a free meal. So I really see our commission as kind of, we need to get messages like that out to the citizens of Sierra Madre and figure out ways to do that sort of work. So do you guys have any questions?
Did you make I don't recall getting a recommendation on locked barrels from you guys, did you?
We got briefed on it,
Yeah.
but we did not make a recommendation. I personally think that it's a really good idea, but then again, who's going to pay for the barrels?
Right, that's the issue, isn't it?
Because I know they're like $300 a piece,
Right.
something like that.
Other questions?
So, Chair Robinson, what would you like to see us do? You know, what is it that we can do, you know, from the perspective of the Natural Resources Commission to address some of the environmental concerns and the natural resource concerns that the commission is evaluating?
Well, there's things that could be done on the building codes. That's something that's, you know, not our preview, would be your preview. Maybe accelerate the electrification of houses and to get off of natural gas. Maybe a first step would be that we would not allow new natural gas furnaces. Some cities have already gone in that direction. There's other things that could be done in regards to electric charging stations for electric cars in our downtown area to attract those people, that we have the infrastructure in place, and that's going to take, you know, lots of money and resources to figure out if there's state money available to get these charging stations installed. there's a 10 step action thing. It's talking about things like you know, the audits that Councilperson Parkhurst mentioned about people being able to have their houses evaluated, look at their insulation levels, their windows, their air conditioning, heating, all those things that use energy. There's also, we need to, recycling is another issue, that we need to get those organics into the greenways cans and get it out of the garbage stream, because that's a huge source of greenhouse gas when you bury organics. You know, the electrification maybe of the police department. Maybe you want to go with electric cars for the police and get off of oil. Those are kind of big ticket items, and I don't know how feasible that is at this point, although they seem to have ranges of 300 miles that might be able to be manageable for our police department. I don't know how many miles they put on a car per day. But those are some of the things I'd like to see.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Robinson, for your report. Appreciate it very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And that brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. So everyone will get 3 minutes to participate, and we ask that you present a yellow card first to the city clerk. You want to go ahead?
David Gordon, president of Sierra Madre Playhouse. Last year, the council received a major COVID relief grant, and its wisdom decided to give a major proportion of that to not-for-profits in Sierra Madre. And the Sierra Madre Playhouse benefited to the extent of $50,000, and I wish to express a belated thank you to the council for that grant. It's extremely important to us, and helps us begin to address our capital items. During COVID, we took the advantage of the close down to do thorough analysis of the needs of the building, and as one could expect from a building that's going to be celebrating its 100th anniversary as a place of entertainment in 2024, we need to redo the electrics, we need to do the air conditioning, we need to repaint it, we need to have ADA compliant bathrooms, the whole lot. It's going to be very expensive, but this enables us at least to begin to make a start. So I'd like to thank you very much indeed for that. The Playhouse has just finished a very successful run of a play called King of the Yees. I hope you all came to see it. It's a play written by Lauren Yee, who's one of the foremost playwrights in the United States, Chinese-American woman, and it's about her family, the Yees. And we actually had a member of the Yee family in the audience on Saturday night, which was wonderful. It's attracted a much more diverse audience than the Playhouse has experienced in the past, and one of our policies is to continue to diversify as an organization and in our audiences. Our next production, starting on September the 9th, mark your calendars, is for a play called Silent Sky, which is about a woman astronomer called Henrietta Leavitt, who was a pioneer astronomer in those days working at the Harvard Observatory. She wasn't, of course, allowed to actually look at the telescope. That was a man's job. But she analyzed the photographs and found a technique for measuring the distance between stars, and therefore made space travel possible. And that play is going to be about that in September. So that's a brief account of what's going on at the Playhouse, and a renewed thank you. See you all at the Playhouse soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
My name is Heather Allen. I live here in Sierra Madre, and I've been taking the dial ride for many years. And I wanted to compliment our driver. He's very excellent. I wanted to let you know that he is very professional and very reliable. I also wanted to extend to you some concerns I have about the dial-a-ride. I think I've been taking the dial-a-ride probably since the mid-90s. We used to have 2 drivers, but now we only have 1. And we used to have full-time service Monday through Friday, but now we only have about 3.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday. We used to have Saturday service, but now we don't. I think part of the problem is we have broken hours. The hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 10 in the morning, and then it's closed until 2:30 to 5. It reopens at 2:30 to 5 o'clock. The one driver we have switches hats, so he starts driving the dial-a-ride, and then in the middle of the day he switches and he does the gateway coach, which is a fixed route system. And then he comes back to the dial-a-ride, and he does dial-a-ride from 2:30 to 5. Frequently when I call for a reservation, I'm told that it's fully booked. So it seems like there's a little bit of not very much availability, shall we say. But if I'm lucky enough to book a morning appointment, the trouble is I don't have a way of getting home. For example, if I booked an appointment, say to a doctor's office, they'd pick me up in Sierra Madre at 9:30, they could get me there in time for an appointment in Pasadena. I might be done around 11 o'clock, but that means I'd have to wait until 2:30 or later to get a ride home. That's a pretty long wait. I'm also kind of worried because the air conditioning has been broken for months. And, you know, it's going to get really hot. And even if it's fixed, the bus will have to be going down for some time while it's repaired. And in the past, when the bus was down, we had no backup bus. I know in January of this year, we had no service at all for 8 business days. Believe me, it's really hard to go without your car for 8 business days, so it's hard for us too. I'm really confused as to why the hours were cut back so drastically. I don't understand why we lost the funding. I know that the city put a bid on the Wisteria House at above asking price a while back. So I'm thinking if we can afford these kinds of things, can't we restore the drivers and the hours? I know that the way a city treats its seniors and its disabled says a lot about its reputation and its integrity. And I'm really hoping that maybe you can do something to help us. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we received a speaker card from Edward Ruhan.
The agenda item I'm here to speak about is the ballot initiative to change the zoning for Madre de la Rosa. So, Honorable Mayor.
Sir, this is this part of our program is only for public comment on issues that are not on the agenda. When we get to that issue, you will have opportunity to speak at that time.
Then I'll come back. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
No problem. No worries.
And I have also a speaker card for Marta, Salgado, Nino.
Same. Okay. Are there any other public comments on non-agenda items? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, there was one email received from, city staff received one email on items not on the agenda. Excuse me, 4 emails for items not on the agenda.
Were those forwarded to us?
All emails were forwarded to the city council and uploaded to the city's website for public access and
Okay, so
transparency.
those are the ones we saw, and they are available for public scrutiny at the website.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on with the agenda then. We move on to our consent calendar, and I think I'm going to employ you again when you're ready, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before the City Council this evening are 6 items for consideration on the consent calendar. Item A is consideration of Resolution 22-37, approving certain demands. Staff recommends that the City Council approve Resolution 22-37, and that's for the approving the payment of city warrants in the aggregate amount of $749,234.70. Also, library warrants in the aggregate amount of $5,361.80. And lastly, payroll transfer in the aggregate amount of $856,752.05. And this is for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022. Consent item B is the cancellation of both August 2022 City Council meetings. It is recommended that the City Council approve the cancellation of both meetings in August and direct staff to pay all necessary expenses during that time. Consent item C is a consideration of Resolution 22-32, ordering the transfer of surplus funds from Sierra Madre Lighting Maintenance District 3, Zone A, and Sierra Madre Lighting Maintenance District 3, Zone B. And it is recommended that the City Council approve Resolution 22-32, ordering the transfer of surplus funds from the Sierra Madre Lighting Maintenance District 3, Zone A, and Sierra Madre Lighting Maintenance District 3, Zone B, to the Sierra Madre General Fund. Consent item D is consideration of Resolutions 22-33 and 22-34 respectively. And these are intentions to abandon and dissolve the 4 downtown districts that have been consolidated as City of Sierra Madre Downtown Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance District, and setting a date for a public hearing. It is recommended that the City Council declare its intention to abandon and dissolve the following districts: Downtown Landscaping District, District 3, Downtown Parking District, District 5, Downtown Lighting District Zone A, Downtown Lighting District Zone B, and also adopt resolutions 22-33 and 22-34, initiating proceedings to abandon and dissolve the above districts and to set July 12 as the date for a public hearing on this matter, as well as the dissolution of the city's assessment districts. Consent item E is the consideration of resolutions 22-38 and 22-39, the intent to initiate proceedings for the levy and collection of assessments. And it is recommended that the City Council adopt resolutions 22-38 and 22-39, respectively, authorizing NBS to prepare and file with the City Clerk the City Engineer's report concerning the levy and collection of assessments within the downtown landscaping and lighting maintenance assessment district, and the Sierra Madre Lighting and Maintenance District Number 1 for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022 and ending July 30, 2023. Additionally, to set June 28th, 2022 as the date for a public hearing on the matter of the Downtown Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance Assessment District and the Sierra Madre Lighting and Maintenance District Number 1. And finally, consent item F is a comment letter to the California Public Utilities Commission regarding new financial security requirements for the Clean Power Alliance, and it is recommended that the City Council receive and file this informational report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. So I'd like to just go through and see if there are council questions on any item. Item A, item B, item C.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Krebs.
So yes, I did have a question about, I understand that we've dissolved the various, or are looking to dissolve the various maintenance districts in the downtown area after having consolidated them by vote last year, and that the reason for that was that the monies were surplusing, I'm not sure that's a verb, were being amassed and not being able to use it for the intended purpose. But my question is, the surplus funds are being recommended to be transferred into the general fund, and I was wondering why that was the case versus being transferred into the newly consolidated district.
Good evening. Thank you for that question. So the reason why this was transferred into the general fund, this was direction from council when we first started the process, but they are being assigned specifically within the general fund to be used within the downtown district.
Okay, so that they're segregated in a way that that the use of them will be directed at that same district.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not being transferred into the district directly, but it is specifically assigned to be only used for the downtown area.
And then going forward, the collection of assessments for that district, that will be then in that district?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on item C? Item D? Item E? And item F?
I did have one question on that too.
Yes, please.
So my understanding on item F was that Councilmember Parkhurst was providing a letter regarding the potential for the increase in security requirements for agencies like the Clean Power Alliance, but then the letter that was in our packet was actually signed by one of the Clean Power Alliance. So I'm just it wasn't clear whether there was a separate letter that you had sent, as council, or whether that was just providing us with information about the letter of opposition provided by the Clean Power Alliance.
Thank you for that question. So I believe that the two letters were sent. One by the letter that was in the packet was from CalCCA, which is the overall organization for all community choice aggregation joint powers authorities in the state. And then there was one sent by the Clean Power Alliance, and so I will make sure that we get one and get it in the packet. And we're working to try to, the Clean Power Alliance is working to resolve this issue. It's notable because both are the utility to the north of us and the utility to the south of us have very different financial surety requirements than our very own utility here, and so it's somewhat concerning and baffling why we have to pay, 65,000% more than a CCA in PG&E's territory or one that's in SDG&E's territory. So more to come on that. Hopefully that'll get resolved through the CPUC process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Upcoming slides. Special revenue funds are funds representing funding from various sources, and they can only be used for eligible expenditures. One of the special revenue funds is the American Rescue Plan Act. The city received an allocation of $2.58 million and has already allocated funding for nonprofit grants and premium pay for employees. And the staff is recommending today is funding for the Sierra Vista Park playground replacement, as well as improvements to the new public safety building. Staff developed a 5-year capital improvement plan to identify the city's needs in the next 5 years. And the city has been working on developing and reviewing strategic goals that will help prioritize projects and while considering available resources. The citywide capital budget is projected to be $5.1 million, and this slide just shows some of the projects that are being proposed. Okay, so now the general fund. General fund is projected to have revenues of $14.6 million and expenditures of $14.2 million. Included in the budget is a contingency of $100,000, as well as transfers out to fund capital projects. The net change in fund balance is projected to be $45,000. We can see a significant increase from prior year expenditures of about $2.5 million. And some of this increase can be explained by our budgeting plan implemented as a response for the pandemic. So at the start of the pandemic, there was uncertainty on the impact on revenues and expenditures, and many cities experienced revenue shortfalls and increased emergency costs. And while other cities considered layoffs and reduction in services, the city of Sierra Madre reduced expenditures in the general fund by using existing reserves in other funds. This budgeting plan helped the city respond to the pandemic's uncertainty without reducing staffing levels and services. And as mentioned, this was a short-term plan, so we did expect the expenditures to come back to the general fund in the next fiscal year. And this slide shows the costs that were budgeted in other funds in the previous year and now are coming back to the general fund. For example, the annual required prepayment
no, the annual required payment for CalPERS and internal service fund allocations were reduced, as well as we paid salaries from existing special revenues funds. So the total is about 1.3 million. This slide further reconciles the increase. We already spoke about the 1.3 million, and some other items were payroll increases due to MOU negotiations or increase in costs, and also UAL prepayment to CalPERS. So this is a additional prepayment to manage our long-term liabilities. The city has already done prepayments and is currently funded at 85%. This prepayment will is projected to be at 88% funded. This chart shows the general fund expenditures by department, and it's important to note that a lot of these departments also have grants and special revenue funding. This chart only shows the general fund portion. So the water fund is projected to have revenues of 7 million and expenses of 5 million. That 1.4 will be reinvested in capital assets. And the sewer fund is projected to have revenues of 1.1 million and expenses of 1.2. And the projected deficit is due to depreciation, which is a non-cash expense. And the sewer fund does have a reserve that meets the minimum required of 25 of operating expenses. Here is the resolutions for approval tonight for the budget adoption. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you for the report. You've given us a lot of data to crunch. Thankfully, we've done so before the meeting. Are there questions?
I think it's not really a question, but I would just like the finance director to kind of restate, if we can go to slide 3, kind of what happened as far as looking at fiscal year 2021, 2022, and then going forward, especially since we had that big surplus. You know, if we look at general fund revenues, or we're seeing 14 million across the board, and then we look at general fund expenses, right? We're seeing 11.8, and then the big jump. And then if we compare that to the internal services fund, we see 4.5 million, and then it jumps up to 6. So I know what happened there, but I think it's important for the community to understand that the internal services fund had fund balances that we were able to use on expenditures. That's why it looks a little funny, and that's the reason why we were running surpluses up until now. If you could just explain that a little bit more in detail for the public.
Yes, correct. So internal service funds, you can see that 6 million in amended 21-22, and some of that was CalPERS UAL payment that was used in the HR fund instead of the general fund. So that would usually go in the general fund, and that's why we see general fund is lower in 21-22. So now those costs are being budgeted in the general fund, so we see that go up, but internal service funds is going down. As I don't know,
Yeah, I think that gets to it. But can you explain the HR fund and what that had in it and how that's funded?
So the internal service funds are funded by general fund, water, sewer. They provide services. It's an example, HR fund. It provides services citywide, so it gets funded through general fund, water, sewer, and also IT, admin. So the allocations to internal service funds were reduced as well, and that reduced expenditures in the general fund. We can see internal service funds revenues decreased in 21-22. So now we're fully allocating those funds, so we won't use reserves, and that's why we're at 5 million now in internal service funds revenues.
I think you said the key word, because we were using reserves. So we had funds with fund balances and reserves. We were using those rather than expending revenue, which is like income, right? So that's why we're able to have surpluses, and then surpluses turn into these large fund balances. And then we spend some of those down. Now we're at the point in time where we're kind of living off what's coming in.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Director Guerrero-Leon, for that presentation. I just would like clarification on the capital improvement plan. I did hear a 5-year plan. I see a citywide capital budget for 5.1, so if you can clarify, is it 5.1 for the 5 years? And with all of the items that are listed under the plan, can't imagine that's a projected cost for all of them. And do we have a projected cost, or is it 5.1?
So 5.1 is for fiscal year 22-23, and
Just 1 year.
it includes the water fund as well. So that's 1 million right there, and the ARPA, which is another million. So it's for 1 fiscal year.
Okay, and then what did I hear about 5-year capital improvement plan?
So we do have an attachment of a 5-year capital improvement plan. We developed it by reviewing the needs of the city for the next 5 years. That gives us an idea long term. And when we have reviewed and developed the strategic goals, that will help us prioritize the projects. And
so everything that's listed here, we are anticipating to complete in the upcoming year with a 5.1.
yes, correct.
Thank you.
Follow up to Councilmember Arizmendi. So do we have, is the 5-year plan 25 million, 30 million? Have we forecasted that out yet?
The 5-year plan, well, the next 4 years, about 13 million. So we would have to prioritize those and then look at available resources.
But, so 13 million, so is that 18 total?
Yes.
So it's 5 million next year. So then it's 13 million over the remaining 4 years. So we're talking about, like, what, 4 million or 3 to 4 million a year in ongoing capital improvement.
Correct. And
this next year, we're going to get significant money. This next fiscal year, we're going to have money from ARPA to be able to spend in it. So we won't have that money in future years to be able to do it. So it may look like it's less, but we've got a benefit of having money this year from the federal government to help us pay for that infrastructure. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay.
And just to jump on that, as far as that capital improvement plan and those funds, some of those funds are coming from the surplus, or not,
the remodel of the building.
How soon can we move in?
We are scheduled to close escrow on June 22nd.
So we're starting construction soon after that.
Again, it'll be demolition and design.
Yes. Can I follow up on a question on the sewer fund? I see where we have a change in that position. We're down $55,640. I probably should know the reason for that, but I'm drawing a blank. Why is that? And what does that portend for the coming years?
So in budget basis, it's more cash basis, but right here it shows it, we have to account for depreciation, and that's a non-cash expense. So that's the majority of that decrease.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So you said that our CalPERS funding will be at 88%. So I'm not going to as clearly articulate this as I would like. There was a rating we had of our city compared to other cities, and I can't remember when it was. It was last year sometime, and it basically gave us a rating. It was an independent organization gave us a rating, and the better we had on our prepayment of our CalPERS upped our kind of fiscal ranking in that. Do you know what I'm rambling about here?
Yes. Do you recall the name of the report?
Can I jump in? I think
I know every city.
there was a ranking of all the cities in the state of California. I think we were in the
Yes.
top 20, right?
Mhm.
In terms of our paid off, our unfunded liability.
I think that was just one factor in other considerations, if I recall correctly.
There was
Yes.
like fiscal health,
Right.
basically.
Right, that was one, but where we ranked really high, right?
But we're moving from 85th to 88% from 85% to 88%. So do we know when that's going to come out? So we get an idea of kind of how we're doing, kind of as our own report card of how we gauge against other cities in the state. Because we were in the top, like the mayor said, in the top 20, and we were in the top quartile of the 800 cities in the state or something like that.
I'll have to look at that specific report.
That's fine. I wouldn't expect you to know that right off the top.
Okay.
This might be more discussion, but we have to be careful when we're looking at those studies, because some municipalities have bonds to then pay down their, and we're not doing that here in the city of Sierra Madre. So we're actually better off than some of those, right?
I think they
Much
take that
better
into
off.
account as well.
Oh,
Like, they take
did?
into
Okay.
account public debt too.
Well, I'm talking about just that one factor.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Yeah.
And it was also a lagging report as well, was that it seemed like when we saw it, and we were rated lower than we thought because, as with everything in government, when you get out a report, it's taking the most recent data and then you have to crunch the report, and so it hadn't taken into account the latest funding. So I was just kind of curious, as we continue to do this, are we seeing the results from an independent body at the state level of our fiscal health?
And I think, Councilmember Parkhurst, you're correct. We're seeing like a year lag time, and so it would be interesting to see where those are too. But again, the one that I recall is that there are numerous factors that were involved, but
Yeah.
The prepayment of the funded liability was a one of the indicators.
Well, I will guarantee you that 88% puts us very high. Personally, I'd like to see us at 90.
We were,
But-
I think.
But 88 will take, right?
Yeah.
There are cities near us that are under 50, and they're borrowing money to get to that point. We're not. So the fiscal health of this city is quite remarkable in comparative terms. Are there other questions about anything here?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So to piggyback on the mayor's question about the deficit in the sewer fund, I noticed that the amended amount for the water fund for this fiscal year had been has gone to a $1.2 million deficit, and I'm just wondering where that came from, and then are we worried about that continuing? I mean, I see that you're showing a slight surplus in the next fiscal year, but just wondering whether that's a trend or an anomaly.
So for the water fund, we are expecting to receive reimbursement for the water expenditures because of the San Gabriel Valley Water District zero interest loan that we received, 2.7. So we'll be using that to mainly in 21-22. That's why we budgeted $3 million in investment in capital assets, which is much higher than the infrastructure charge.
This is a kind of a timing thing.
Timing,
We made the
yes.
expenditure in this fiscal year, but we're going to get the proceeds of the loan in the next fiscal year.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
So I noticed on the capital projects list that you gave us, this is kind of because it's a longer term item and a longer term plan here, in light of Chair Robinson's comment, I noticed we've got a number of vehicles that are being replaced a year, and I see the chief back there. We have got a police vehicle we're replacing every year. It would be interesting to evaluate the ability to have those as electric vehicles as we go forward. I know we've seen in Los Angeles County an electric fire truck. I don't know what the potential is for police vehicles, but it would be good to have that as something that we kind of consider going forward.
Other questions before we turn this over to public comment? Okay, I think we've exhausted questions. Director Leon, thank you for your help. I'll open this agenda item open to public comment. Do we have any yellow cards?
Mr. Mayor, there were no cards or emails received for this item.
Okay, thank you. So I'll bring it back to council. Would anyone like to comment before we present motions on these 4 resolutions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I know that in at least last year's discussion, I mean, there was a lot of kudos presented to our finance department and our staff in general for the health of our budget, and I don't want that to get lost again, just because we're seeing a little bit of a return to reality after we've come out of the severe budgetary constraints that we put into place as a precautionary measure for the pandemic response. So I think I'm just as proud and just as happy with our staff and our finance department's work on making sure that we are continuing to be beyond fiscally healthy and really thriving. And I don't want the numbers, because they're different. We talk about big surplus last year and that gets headlines, but I feel like I don't want it to get lost that our staff and our finance department and our goals as a city have not been changed and have not been lessened. It's just that we are having to adjust to the realities of our budget, and I just want to commend the finance director and her whole team and the city, all staffed, for putting the amount of work that they do into this, both in the budgetary cycle and year-round, to make sure that we are staying on task and focused on maintaining our fiscal health.
Other comments?
Yeah, if I can just piggyback on that quickly, of course, thanks to our finance team and our director and the entire E-team and staff. In my new role, I work with a lot of cities, and it really is an unusual year when you're looking at cities that are flush with money. And it is interesting because we are seeing the ARPA dollars that are coming in right now, but it's important to note these are one-time dollars. These are not going to be ongoing. And as we're considering our investment in infrastructure, I think it's, we did consider some of the nonprofit organizations that we invested in too, but as we're looking at the long term, these one-time dollars I think are important to look at the infrastructure pieces. So I'm glad to see that as part of this project. I know we've all been asking about capital projects and where we're going to see in the long term. And I'm hoping we can find additional dollars at some point, because as we're talking about our strategic planning, our revenue streams are very limited at this time. But we still have 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and if not more, to think out about what we need to consider for our city. But I think where we're at right now, I think it's a great presentation of where we're at. And I'm happy to hear that we're also continuing to use the zero budget basis of how we're approaching it, and I look forward to supporting this budget as proposed or as presented.
Other comments?
Yeah, just more of that. Kudos to the finance director and the finance team and all of the department heads. Doing a zero-based budget is very, very difficult to come up and justify every single expenditure that you have to have in your department. And by the way, there's a year that's ahead of you, that there's a lot of unknowns. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into this process in City Hall during budget time, months of preparation to get this budget put together, because we do zero base. We could be like other cities and just add 5% every year and make it super easy, but that's not the responsible thing to do. So I'd like to commend staff, city management, and everybody for putting this budget together. And yes, we are, as a council, we are looking forward to having generational responsibility in our capital improvements, not letting things wait till they break or they're not good anymore to then, oh, we need to fix it, right? So we have a goal, as this council does at least, have a goal to make sure that the things that happened in the past 4 or 5 years to the previous council and this current council don't happen again.
And I'll echo what my other council members said, but first I want to apologize, Mr. Mayor. I made a comment during the question session, and from a procedure perspective, we should try to keep that. The one thing that I will add is, going into the pandemic, we were able to, as Director Guerrero-Leon said, is maintain levels of service and not decrease headcount. And I think that is incredibly significant. We did that I believe, even before having any of the federal funds that came in. And so that, it demonstrates an incredible amount of nimbleness and an incredible amount of attention that all of the staff looked at it, tried to figure out in a crisis situation, of what we could do to continue to be a full-service city. And so, I really, huge kudos to that. And in recognizing, going forward, this zero-based budgeting, we do hear how challenging it is, and how you have kind of the classic Lincoln novel of a team of rivals, if you will, of all of the departments in and looking at each other's budgets and asking questions and developing it. And I just want to say, many of us appreciate that, because we see the results on this end. We see that it's a better understanding, it's a well thought out budget for the whole city.
I'm also very impressed with the detail and diligence that our staff, our director, our finance director, and all the folks who worked on this. I think Mayor Pro Tem's comments about zero-based budgeting, I know are true. Coming out of the strategic planning session yesterday, we heard firsthand from managers just how their feet are being put to the fire literally every year when they craft a budget, having to justify literally every line item. And here's the upshot of that. We're looking at a budget that looks pretty solid here. It doesn't have the blue sky we had last year with the surplus, but we're still in good shape. Here's the downside. I'll be Mr. Killjoy for a minute. Hearing from our managers yesterday, it is obvious that we with the zero-based budgeting approach and a limited revenue stream, we have squeezed just about all the blood that's left to squeeze out of the tournament. That is, very, very few cities are this aggressive about cost management and cost control. And the downside of that is that more and more is asked of employees. And as a consequence, there are pressures on the employees in many different departments that we are going to have to address in many different ways. And some of those ways to address those problems will require future costs, not just in the future, but maybe as early as this year. So I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture. I think if you're looking 3 and 4 years down the line with some of the costs that we're projecting, this is completely irrespective of the inflation and fuel prices we all know we're all dealing with. The city has to deal with that too. I'm just talking about where things are starting to fray. This well-oiled machine of our city government has some areas that we need to address, and particularly in personnel. So I hope our council will take those issues up in earnest as they come to us. And I just want the public to understand that some point down the future, unless the economy gives us some kind of positive curveball we're not expecting, we're probably going to have to go back to the public and ask for more revenue at some point. I don't see if there's much any way around that, but not this year, and probably not as early as next year. Having said that, I'd like to see if there are any other items that we need to talk about before we. No? Any motion for approval of the resolutions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 22-28, 22-29, 22-30, PFA Resolution number 76.
Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? We have a budget. Congratulations, everyone involved. Yay. Okay, so where's my agenda? And that moves us on to discussion item consideration of resolutions 22-40, 22-41, 22-42, and the qualified citizen petition, and resolution 22-43. Yes.
And, yeah, 2244.
2244, okay, sorry.
No worries.
Missed that. Thank you.
Fit on one page. Mr. Mayor, Mayor Jean Goss, and honorable mayors, members of the City Council. The city holds regular municipal elections every 2 years. The next regular municipal election is scheduled for November 8th. There are currently 3 seats slated for that ballot. And it is necessary for the City Council to adopt certain resolutions related to that election. In addition, There are three proponents that submitted their intent to circulate a petition with the city clerk's office on January 25th of this year for the purpose of changing the zone of the monastery parcel of the Madre Dolorosa parcel and any subdivisions of it from institutional to hillside residential zone. With regard to that petition, City Attorney Garagosian prepared a ballot title and initiative summary pursuant to Elections Code 9203. The proponents, Barbara Belturo, Alexander Arreotta, and Gary Bacho, submitted proof of publication of their intent to circulate an initiative to the City Clerk's office on February 24th. The completed petition was submitted to the City Clerk's office on May 13, and a prima facie sampling was conducted at the City Clerk's office in Sierra Madre, and then subsequently forwarded to Los Angeles County Clerk's office for a second analysis of collected signatures. The County Clerk's office determined, in conjunction with the City Clerk's office for Sierra Madre, the number of signatures filed were 1,492. The number of signatures found sufficient were 1,300. Of which a minimum of 856 were needed to qualify for a ballot initiative. So this evening, the City Council is being asked to consider a number of options related to the ballot initiative. The City Council may consider to adopt the initiative without alteration. The City Council may submit the initiative without alteration to the November 8th general municipal election. The City Council may call for a special election to be held before November 8th and submit the initiative to a ballot at an upcoming special election. And the City Council may also consider directing the City Attorney to prepare a report pursuant to Elections Code 9212. Elections Code 9212 stipulates that the legislative body, in this case the City Council, may refer the proposed initiative measure to a city agency or agencies for a report of any or all of the topics listed within the agenda report that you were all previously provided in advance of this meeting. The report shall be presented to the legislative body within the time prescribed, but no later than 30 days after the election official certifies to the legislative body the sufficiency of the petition. That date would be July 14th, 2022. So this evening, City staff is asking the City Council to consider adoption of Resolution 20-40. That's calling and giving notice of holding a general municipal election to be held on November 8th for the election of certain officers as required by the provision of laws of the state of California related to general law cities. This Resolution 20-40 will allow the Los Angeles County to assist us with the election. Resolution 22-41, adopting regulations for candidates for elective office pertaining to candidates' statements submitted to the voters at the election to be submitted on November 8th. Resolution 22-42 is requesting the Board of Supervisors of the Los Angeles County to render specified services to the City of Sierra Madre relating to the conduct of general municipal election to be held on November 8th. This will basically allow them to come into Sierra Madre, the county will conduct elections, and then we promise to pay them. And that amount is not known at this time. Additionally, the council has asked to consider the qualified citizens petition for an initiative measure to change the general plan land use designation from institutional to hillside and the zoning designation from institutional to hillside management for the Madre Dolorosa property. In conjunction with this consideration of this item, there are two resolutions that can be considered with the petition. Resolution 22-43 is providing for the filing of rebuttal arguments for ballot measures and initiatives submitted at municipal elections. And Resolution 22-44 is setting priorities for filing written arguments regarding a measure and directing the City Attorney to prepare an impartial analysis. Mr. Mayor, this concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Are there any questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So for resolutions 2240 through 2242, is there anything different on these than for any other general election that we have in the city, or any other city, anything unusual about those, or do we have to adopt these every time we elect a city council, or have a national election?
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhurst. Resolutions 20-40, 41, and 42 are standard resolutions that will come before City Council at every election.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Hearing none, I'd like to open this up for public comment. Maybe 3 minutes allotted for each comment. Please present a yellow card to our city clerk.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the city received one email regarding this topic, which was forwarded to the City Council and uploaded to the city's website. And this evening, I have 15 speaker cards. The first is for John Doyle.
Good evening, Mayor Goss and council members. My name is John Doyle, and I live on the 600 block of West Sierra Madre Boulevard. As a taxpayer, I am very interested in learning more about the various risks associated with the initiative, even before it is certified for the ballot. I urge the council members to seek further clarification of the potential legal risks presented by the initiative, as well as our exposure to legal fees and costs in the event of federal and state litigation. I'm also interested in whether there has been an evaluation of the potential that the state could allow or even require subdivision of the larger parcels called for in the initiative, and allow placement of not only homes, but ADU units on those subdivisions. How would this affect tax revenues, water usage, and fire safety? What mitigation factors offered by the Meadows project would vanish if the initiative passes? These questions call for further study over the next few weeks. The Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act of 2000 prohibits zoning laws that substantially burden the religious exercise of churches and other religious institutions, absent the least restrictive means of furthering a compelling governmental interest. This prohibition applies whenever the substantial burden arises from the local government's procedures for making individualized assessments of a property's use. The initiative includes very substantial burdens on the Passionists that don't appear to involve anything close to a compelling government interest. The initiative proponents have consistently downplayed the risk of litigation, and yet their attorney seems to be missing in action. What the proponents seem to be saying is that the Passionists simply will not fight this in court. Now that would be a leap of faith. I suggest that the council request the city attorney, possibly with the assistance of an outside land use attorney, to provide a legal opinion of the liability exposure if the initiative is enacted, and also the likely exposure of the taxpayers to attorneys' fees and costs on both sides of that litigation. The tax-paying voters should have this important information before they vote. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Pat Elkhorn.
Mr. Mayor Goss and Council, I'm Pat Alcorn, and I live on Grandview. Mr. Doyle said basically what I was intending to say, only a little more eloquently. But I just wanted to add that the Planning Commission has expressed a concern when they discuss the Meadows project that if they don't get it right, they'll create a situation comparable to the Carter project, which costs the city thousands of dollars. And they are right to worry. This initiative is ripe for a large lawsuit for the city if it is determined that adequate study of the initiative was not conducted prior to placing it on the ballot. There is the issue of spot zoning, which will prevent a religious organization to expand or change their program under their current institutional designation. If the city planning does not have the ability to put input on any proposed development from the Passionates under their current institutional designation, as they do now, or to complete the formal application of the Passionates now before the city planners, it will create an impression that Madre de la Rosa was singled out over any other landowner in the city and prevented its due process. Changing the zoning will place a great hardship on the retreat center, both financially and religiously. There can be no doubt that the passing of this initiative will create a lawsuit one way or another. I urge you to direct the city attorney to prepare a report on the impact of the initiative and bring back a study that the liability of the city if such a prospect of the initiative would pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Alcorn.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Mary Doyle.
Good evening, esteemed council members. I'm here tonight also with the request that you seek additional information on the implications of the initiative before proceeding with its inclusion on the November ballot. I'm sorry, I live on the 600 block of Sierra Madre Boulevard too. As you know, you have a duty to inform all citizens of Sierra Madre about what this initiative, if passed, would really mean for our city. So far, most of the people have only heard a single side of what this initiative might mean and have not had the actual facts presented in an objective form with which to make an educated decision. I would ask council seek answers to 4 questions. Number 1, will this initiative put the city at risk for litigation based on religious discrimination, since it is only directed at the monastery at Madre de la Rosa? Number 2, is it legal to approve an initiative whose 3 components effectively prohibit any reasonable use of the property? Reclassification as hillside management, redefinition of all existing buildings as non-conforming, and prohibition of any change or parcel development due to hillside zoning ordinances is a dangerous combination whose authors and endorsers hope will be a backdoor way to permanently prohibit meaningful property development. They're hoping the general public will not be savvy enough to connect the dots. It is your job to see that they get the information they need to do so. Could this initiative set a precedence or provide an alternate pathway to City Planning Commission and City Council review for those who do not like or agree with another property owner's proposed plan or variance request? And finally, we all know the Passionate priests are seeking income to continue their mission, and that staff at the monastery must follow the direction and orders of the main office in Chicago. Since they will still be looking for ways to monetize part of their property, what will their attorneys in Chicago direct the monastery to do should the initiative pass? What will they direct them to do if it doesn't? Or if the city council does not approve rezoning from institutional to residential? And thank you for the opportunity to comment on the initiative and for the request that additional information be gathered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Doyle.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Manuel Briones.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As an opportunity to share a little bit of information and background, just wanted to let you know that my name, Manuel Briones, is to also inform you that I am a board member, have been for the past 2 years at Madre de la Rosa, but I have also visited your city on a number of occasions over the past 4 decades, staying a number of nights as well as a retreatant. So I've come to know your city quite well, and I can understand why people have some very strong opinions and want to protect this city, as I'm sure you do. But I'm a little bit concerned at hearing some of the information that has been passed on by those who are proponents to this project, the Meadows. And I simply want to touch on one of those points that was brought up in the Mountain Views news. And it claimed that by allowing this project to proceed, that it would double the amount of traffic in the local area. However, what they were not able to explain, and what I have questions about, is how producing this additional amount of housing in the area that would be less than 1% of what is now available here in the city of Sierra Madre would increase it by 100%. I think there's a lot of misinformation that is being generated. I think people are not getting the correct information, and therefore really what I'm asking the council to consider seriously is to bring forth a study and a report that really examines this initiative and can give some very accurate information to the citizenry before anything proceeds, especially if this initiative were to be on the ballot and pass, because as you already heard, there is a strong potential for litigation. And I'm sure that's something the city would not want to deal with. So once again, I thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker, and forgive me if I mispronounce this, I believe is Michael Cunningham.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm Retreat Center Director and CEO at Madre de la Rosa. As expressed in the letter sent by Greg Murphy, Madre de la Rosa will be greatly harmed if this initiative is successful. And I can also say that damage has already been made through considerable miscommunication of our development plans and the status of our ministry. Madre de la Rosa has served Sierra Madre, Greater Los Angeles, and Southern California with spiritual and healing ministry since 1924. Since then, the ministry has been evolving, expanding, and responding to the signs of the times. Imagine if this restriction had arrived earlier in our history. Imagine the soldiers returning from the Second World War not welcomed at the retreat center because we've been unable to build it as a result of this initiative. Imagine if all the thousands of people in recovery programs who had not been able to come to this sacred place. Imagine if the 15,000 visitors who graced our gardens and center during a typical year are suddenly not welcome. Now imagine a time in the future when we and all those who want to visit Madre de la Rosa for whatever reason are not able to do so because we cannot add additional rooms, build facilities for our food ministry, provide meeting space for our recovery groups, and those in trouble in their lives. This is the future which this initiative beckons towards us. Living in Sierra Madre is an expensive proposition. Imagine a time when we can't provide staff accommodation for our employees because we cannot add additional staff accommodation. Even though we own the land and the ministry, we cannot offer it if we cannot expand and plan. This is not the future we could have imagined for ourselves and not a future that anyone else would want. Imagine if building restrictions were made on land that you owned, fully paid for, and operating a service that individuals can enjoy regardless of their financial means, and suddenly it all stopped. Even short-term improvements in our own plans are affected. For example, we've been working on a solar plan for 2 years, nearing the end of the planning and funding process. Will we be able to get permission for solar and provide a cleaner environment? I don't know. Despite all of this, Madre de la Rosa's ministry is alive and well today. We are fully booked for retreats, conferences, and recovery ministry till May 2023. Will we be able to meet expanded demand in the future as we have in the past? If this initiative passes, then the answer will be no. The unfairness of all this has been well said by others in our letter to the Council. I ask the Council members to consider the implications of this measure carefully before a ministry that has provided services to this community and the surrounding area becomes what the proponents want, to be frozen in time and unable to respond to the needs of those around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Alex Arreotta.
Good evening. Wanted to talk for just a moment about the initiative. I would want to say you need to listen to your constituents. I think there's been a very compelling message that has come across in that there has been almost 1,500 residents who, signatures rather, and 1,300 confirmed resident signatures. So one thing you continue to hear is opposition to this project is a small group of individuals in Sierra Madre, which is simply not the case. And the success on this initiative to date in terms of securing 1,300 valid signatures is just a first step towards showing that there's some broad-based concerns about this project in its current form. And in terms of misinformation that has been going back and forth, whether it's from New Urban West, whether it's with Citizens for Fairness, which is basically the mouthpiece now for New Urban West, there is a lot of information going on, and I was pleased to see that the Planning Commission, yes, it was a 3-hour, 45-minute meeting, I was there for every minute of it, are putting in the hard blood, sweat, and tears into tearing into this project to see what is behind this project. And for the first time, I think in the last 4 Planning Commission meetings, it became quite clear that these are significantly huge planned homes. And you heard the estimates of anywhere up to 4,850 potential square foot homes that could be built on each of these 42 lots. And that was a clear epiphany for the Planning Commission a week, 10 days ago, and for everyone else in that meeting. So there are some significant concerns expressed about the project, not just by the residents, these 1,300 people so far who have expressed concerns, but by the Planning Commission. We advise and we would humbly request that you seriously consider this initiative and that you listen to the constituents who have worked hard to get this ballot measure to the point where it needs to get to, which is a legitimate place on the ballot. Secondly, I would also ask that if you can ask any speakers who come up here to state whether they live in Sierra Madre or not. That's been a practice of City Council and meetings in the past, and I would ask that you continue to adhere to that, because what we continue to have are individuals who do not live in the city and will not have to live with this project going forward once it's implemented. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Arreotta.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Tricia Searcy.
Good evening, Tricia Searcy. I live at 734 Fairview Avenue in Sierra Madre. And I'm going to echo what Alex Arreotta has just said and urge you to listen to your constituents. They're sending a clear message. Protect Sierra Madre gathered these signatures in only a couple months. It's almost twice as many as are required. And I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people in this community. I talked to them, I listened to them, we had long conversations about what their concerns were, and I learned a lot about how the people feel, a lot of the people in the community that I spoke to. And my experience was that overwhelmingly people were feeling that they weren't being heard, that they weren't being represented, that this developer was coming in and bulldozing the city. They want to feel like their voices matter. And this initiative gives them a voice in their community. This is the democratic process at work, and I would hate to think that this would be chilled out of fear of litigation from a big money developer. These people, we want all to protect our town, and we want to, and I think everybody wants to feel like their opinions matter. You're their voices. You were elected to represent them. And so I just strongly urge you to take that into consideration, that you are representing these people who have put this initiative out there, and it's qualified to be on the ballot, and that's the nature of our democracy. And the the last thing I wanted to say is that my understanding is that Beverly Grossman Palmer, the attorney, has indicated that you would need to address this initiative either tonight or in July. So if there's going to be a report, if the council is going to be canceled in August. So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Souza.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Father Bruno de Souza.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm Father Bruno de Souza. I'm a Passionist priest, and I live in the Passionist community at Marta Dolorosa. I am a local superior of the community as well, and by that extension, the president of the corporation that is Marta Dolorosa, a Passionist community at Marta Dolorosa. This evening, I speak on behalf of the Passionists, both who now live at the Passionist community at Marta Dolorosa and those who have ministered out of the monastery that was once there and the retreat center in the last 98 years. In 2 years, the Passionists will be celebrating 100 years of our presence in Sierra Madre. And in these past 98 years, the Passionists have been an integral part of the city. We have always welcomed people on our property and to our retreat center and continue to do so. We have provided for the spiritual needs of people of this city when the Passionists priest took care of St. Rita's Church back in the days, and also through the retreat center programs over the years. While everything shut down when the pandemic hit, we repurposed the retreat center kitchen, initiating the food ministry that has fed hundreds of people. The annual fiesta we had on our grounds is fondly remembered by the people of this city even today. And so it is saddening and also deeply hurting to us Passionists that a few people from the city have decided to run an initiative, a ballot initiative, that would not only infringe and cancel our property rights, but also put a brake on anything we would like to do through the retreat center. It changes the city laws to make expansion of Marta Dolorosa Retreat Center or its ministry illegal. This initiative clearly singles out us, the Passionists, and the retreat center. The Passionist land in its entirety would be zoned hillside residential, while all the residential properties to the west, east, and immediate south are zoned R1. And to that effect, I think so, it is discriminatory in its very nature. And I think if it is done to us today, it can be anyone else tomorrow. The Passionist community, along with the staff at the retreat center, strongly urge the City Council to study the ramifications of the initiative and inform the residents of Sierra Madre. The residents and the voters of Sierra Madre deserve to know the substantial risks that the initiative and its proponents are willing to place on the city. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Father.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Manuel Valdez.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'll start off by saying, being Flag Day, we appreciate Mayor Goss and your discussion about this great American flag, and some of the points are made whether you're a sort of a citizen of this great city of Sierra Madre, but we both pledged to the same flag. I'm from Pasadena, but I'm also a board member of the Marta Dolorosa Retreat Center, and certainly call attention. What a lot of people have brought to your attention is the public's right to know about this discriminatory initiative. Tying the land use and being discriminatory against a religious entity like this that we cherish, it's just appalling. You just can't understand. I'm the kind of quiet guy, just let things go. But this one, you got to stand up for. This is meaningful. That the challenge that they put towards this is that we'll take you and squeeze you till you stop what they don't want to happen, which is putting homes here, right? Family homes. So I urge you to consider, this ramifications that are happening with this petition. I think a lot of people may have been sort of put aside about what they think they're signing for in a petition when you're trying to go to the supermarket and they're sign here, this is what we're trying to do. But this religious stop on people, it's just appalling. I couldn't understand it. I mean, when the people in other cities find out that this is what the Sierra Madre people want to do, I caution you, right? There's legal ramifications, of course, but the political ramifications of people what are they going to feel about your great city? I come here all the time. I'm eating at Tacos Ensenada. I think it's probably the cheapest place to eat in this whole city. And if you hadn't eaten there, please do so. The great family that owns the place, but certainly they know that this is what's happening in their great city. So I urge you to consider your great citizens, inform them well, do the study, help them out, and I think we'll come to a great place after that. But I think there's a lot of people that have been not really informed. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Luke Welsh.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. I too am a board member at Madre de la Rosa, a place that I love. I grew up in Arcadia, just on the other side of Orange Grove there for 20 years, and my mom spent her final 10 years here over right by Sierra Madre Middle School there. So this place has a special place in my heart. Attended many events at St. Rita's, and so, Madre de la Rosa does not want to sell and build or have someone build a high school or build institutional, long-term care facility there. Madre de la Rosa wants to help the Passionist around the world to help, their mission to, bring their vision to the world. So with that, this project is only 1%, only add 42 homes out of 4,400 in the city of Sierra Madre. That's a tiny amount. And it's just truly amazing that with the sale of this property and this project going forward, that they can actually further their mission. I fear that unless you take action tonight to study those negative impacts of this initiative, the opportunity will be lost to educate the citizens of Sierra Madre. Just because some of the people here have been willing to misrepresent everything in order to basically collect their petitions and qualify this initiative. You have an obligation here tonight to really set the record straight, and I implore you to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Filippo Fanara.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. I am Filippo Fanara. I live in Pasadena, but I've been coming to Madre de la Rosa for the last 25 years. This year, I'm the president of Madre de la Rosa Passionist Retreat Center Board of Directors. I would like this evening to summarize a letter our attorney prepared and submitted to the city, providing you with a brief summary of our position on the initiative that seeks to rezone the property. The letter states in part, the Passionists could have utilizing this institutional zoning of the property and undertaken a development of a high school with a ball fields and lights or a dense congregate facility on the Meadows parcel. But given their intent to continue their local ministries, the Passionists determined that a low-density, single-family residential community would best manifest a long-term commitment to the city. Apparently, that was too much for the proponents of the initiative to bear. They determined that making that attempt, the Passionists should be denied any right to modify or expand Madre de la Rosa. Specifically, the initiative states, the intent, and I quote this, the intent of this initiative is to permit the continued operation of the Madre Passionist Retreat Center without expansion, significant physical alterations, or change in use into the future. No other property in the city is being subjected to this limitation. The initiative targets the Passionists, giving rise to a clear, unmistakable claim under the Federal Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, RLUIPA, which prohibits local governments from singling out religious uses for unequal treatment. Federal courts have generally found that denials of applications to expand current religious uses are implicated by RLUIPA. For example, the courts found that RLUIPA was violated when a zoning board denied a permit to expand a religious school where the expansion was necessary to provide adequate facilities for religious education to students. Obviously, the legislative prohibition of every possible expansion or change at Madre de Rosa presents this unequal treatment. Further, the manner in which the initiative singles out and targets Passionist retreats raises claims under California laws related to spot zoning. Spot zoning occurs when one parcel is given lesser rights than surrounding property and no rational reason exists for that classification. The initiative rezoned Madre de Rosa and the potential developable portion of its south as hillside residential, while all of the residential properties to the west, to the east, and immediately to the south are zoned R1 family residential. There's no rational reason for this. It is merely an attempt to retaliate against Madre de Rosa for daring to develop a portion of their property in a manner consistent with the properties around them. The Passionists encourage you to direct your city attorney office to analyze all the federal, state, and claims that would.
Sir, you have to wrap it up. You've had your 3 minutes.
Almost done, sir.
Okay.
Would raise Passionists should be the initiative be adopted. The residents and voters of Sierra Madre deserve to know the substantial legal risks that initiative proponents are willing to place on this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Jane Warlick.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jean Warlick. I have been on staff at Madre de la Rosa Retreat Center for 17 years. And although I don't live in the city of Sierra Madre, I spend most of my time in Sierra Madre. And so therefore, I also go to the stores and the restaurants and support businesses in Sierra Madre. I would like to share several thoughts that come to my mind regarding the zoning initiative. First of all, it's an initiative that would prevent Madre de la Rosa from undertaking any expansion or physical alterations to our retreat center. It's an initiative that would impact the growing number of men, women, young adults, and youth who come to the retreat center and who depend on the spiritual, compassionate care that is so transformational in one's life. It would also impact the growing number of seniors, families, and those without a home who depend on our food ministry. I believe if the citizens of Sierra Madre would seriously reflect on the benefits the Passionist community and the retreat center have brought to their city for almost 100 years, that they would change their minds about this unfair initiative. So I humbly ask you to please take 30 days at least to study all the impacts, negative and legal risks that this initiative would create. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Edward Ruhan.
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ed Ruin. My family and I live in Altadena. My wife has worked down the street here for years. My daughter honed her art skills in the city. And of course, we love tailors. I serve on the board of Madre de la Rosa and recently was the past chair. And I love Madre de la Rosa and I appreciate all the work the Passionists have done, both on the Hill and off the Hill, for decades. I'm here to speak against the ballot initiative to change the Madre de la Rosa zoning from institutional to hillside residential. My experience over the last 25 years, I've worked with teams that have developed property around the country, California, Hawaii, Arizona, Nevada, Utah. So I have a little bit of experience on the process, and I know your job's a tough one. It's fitting today's Flag Day, and that our Pledge of Allegiance extols that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we look at this ballot initiative, I feel that it actually is an injustice to the Passionists, and it violates their liberty as property holders, which in this country is one of our greatest strengths. Specifically, this petition sponsors say that it won't harm Madre de la Rosa. This is a no-touch, no-violation petition. But it says they can operate as long as they do it without expansion, significant physical alteration, or change in use. And I tell our team every day, if we don't grow, we die. And your prior presentation was on the budget, which had capital being invested in the city, because if you don't grow, you'll die. And that's essentially what we're going to be asking of the Passionists. We want you to lock in on your current specific use and not alter it and not move, even if the needs are greater, even if the food needs are greater, if more people want to come to the retreat. The other interesting fact is no other properties being asked to participate in this change. Not to the west, not to the east, not to the south. It specifically targets our Passionists and changing them to hillside residential while everyone else remains R1. That clearly doesn't seem just, and if they asked me or any one of us in this room to do that to our own property, that's just not fair. I strongly encourage you to have the city's attorney office analyze this initiative and inform the voters in writing of the substantial legal risks. This clearly is an important matter, and I appreciate all the time, energy, and effort that everyone devotes to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruin.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Marta Salgado Nino.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Marta Salgado Nino. I've worked at Madre de la Rosa for the past 5 years. And again, to echo Ms. Warlick, while I may not reside in Pasadena, I spend more time in Sierra Madre than I do in my home city. I am blessed to be part of the Madre de la Rosa staff. One of the blessings is being part of a team that provides a place for people to go to for spiritual development and getting closer to God. Over time, we find that there are more and more people seeking spiritual enrichment. Expansion of the retreat center is necessary to meet demand. This unfair initiative would prohibit Madre de la Rosa from expanding and will prevent spiritually hungry people from receiving spiritual and compassionate nourishment. It's imperative that citizens of Sierra Madre understand the impact of this resolution, which is why I'm asking you to take 30 days to study the negative impacts and legal risks this initiative would create. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Stephen Biskup.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable council members. I think to put the initiative on the ballot is unconstitutional, is completely wrong for several reasons. One of the compelling reasons, per se, I live on 3912 Park Vista Drive, right above Sierra Madre. And per se, my neighbors, lovely neighbors, Tracy on the left side and Curtis on the left side, would deny my rights to sell the house, my house. How would I feel? This is the same precedent what you're trying to put on the ballot. The same thing happens. You deny the right of private owner to sell their property. I think that's the shortest speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Angela Hawkett.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I am Angela Hawkett. I am a retreatant of Madre for the past 25 years. I was actually on its very first board of directors that was established back in 2003, and I have a very long-standing relationship. I am an attorney. I have actually advised Madre on a number of issues through the years, not necessarily on this particular transaction. However, I was involved for many years when back in the early 2000s, Madre was looking at different uses for its property. So I'm quite well aware of the tortured process that they have been going through all these many years, trying to find a really good, proper use of property that would be fair to its neighbors. You have to know that for many years, there have been a lot of neighbors of Madre that have felt very comfortable encroaching on their property. You only have to go look at the west side of their property line and you'll see stairs coming down from local property owners. Have the Passionists fought against this? No, they haven't. They've been good neighbors. They've been here for more than, almost 100 years. And they will be here longer than any of us. I think that it's a chilling effect on their ability to exercise their private property rights to allow this initiative to go forward. However, I am mindful of the fact that there are a lot of things that still need to be studied, and I would commend all of you to do that. I think it is your fiduciary duty, and I'm speaking again as a lawyer, of course, to further study this. Have your city attorney prepare a report. Look at all the legal liability that's out there. Trust me, there's legal liability. I think you've heard some references to statutes here tonight. I think that that's something that really needs to be considered. So I would hope that you will consider these comments and do the right thing, have a city attorney prepare a report, and then we'll see where we go. I thank you for your time, and I will say that I am part of a local group called the Sierra Madre Neighbors for Fairness, and no, we are not funded by New West Urban Development. We are actually a grassroots organization that has as our goal to support the monastery in its ability to exercise its freedom of religion and the ability to provide guidance and spiritual care for all the members of the community like it has been doing for so many years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Robert Jerde.
I'm Robert Jerde. I live in Sierra Madre, so everyone's clear. A few months ago, I asked that if the initiative got on the ballot, that you would help educate the voters on the risks of rezoning the Passionists property to a residential zone. The Passionists do not follow the same rules as the rest of us because they are an institution and most of us are homeowners. The institutional zone was created to serve the needs of institutions and to free them from the non-applicable rules created for residences. The Passionists as a religious institution have special protections under the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which protects them from this sort of overly restrictive downzoning. It doesn't matter if every constituent in the city votes for this initiative because you cannot vote away the fundamental rights of a religious institution. This concern is not directly related to the proposal to build the homes. Rezoning the retreat center will likely violate the rights of the Passionists even if no homes are ever built. As a non-conforming use, the retreat center will no longer be able to do any expansion or alteration, even on the interior, if I understand that correctly. This definitely results in an overly restrictive downzoning when interior alterations would have no effect on the hillside environment, which is the supposed compelling government interest of the initiative. This puts the city at risk of being sued. When other cities have lost similar lawsuits, the city leaders have been able to correct their zoning blunder and get away with only paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. But in this case, the initiative ties the city's hands and prevents them from reverting the zoning back to institutional. This could result in the courts placing a judgment against the city for a First Amendment violation that cannot be rectified by the city. Under our LUPA, all a property owner is required to do is exhaust the administrative options, of which there are none. They cannot apply for a permit as a non-conforming use to expand or alter their non-conforming use. Maybe they don't even have to apply for a permit. They may have standing because they don't even have the option of applying for a permit. And they're under no obligation to request a new referendum to change the zoning. That's gives them no value for that being in the initiative. The proponents of the initiative say they are in a fight for the very heart and soul of Sierra Madre, but that's not true. They're fighting against the heart and soul of the city when they attack the city's religious institutions. General Plan L41 says the city is to provide for the development of private institutional uses in areas where such uses currently exist, and that they are to allow for the expansion of existing institutional sites. The initiative violates the intent of the general plan. Rezoning does not bring the property into compliance, it makes it non-compliant. This is completely different than rezoning the property to a residential zone. Under SB 9,
Can you wrap it up, Mr. Gurdy?
Okay, I'm almost done. If the entire property is zoned residential, they could tear down the monastery and build over 80 homes under SB 9, and half those homes could be 6,500 square feet in size. Please research all the risks to the city and help educate the voters on this issue.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, there are no other speaker cards.
Okay. Are there any other public comments on this agenda item? Okay. All right. Yes, you may. Come on, Joe.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And good evening to the rest of you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe Catalano. I do live in Sierra Madre. I'm a licensed architect, former planning commissioner. I'm also an adjunct professor of urban planning out at Cal Poly Pomona, and recently nominated for a fellowship in the American Institute of Architects. I'm listening to a lot of threats tonight, and an awful lot of talk about how the passionists are being invaded against. I just want to, and I'm not going to speak very, very long here at all, but I just want to make you all aware that there's a really, really serious issue here that doesn't have anything to do with what we've been hearing about tonight, and that's just that, let's get down to basics, it's a real lousy design. I don't even see how you can talk about a forced downzoning when the design creates density, packing houses in, that's way in excess of what we normally have. I mean, who are we cheating out of what? It's absolutely ridiculous. So I would like the ongoing discourse to also allow for enough time for us to be able to really look at this as a piece of urban design work, as well as all these other issues that are being talked about, because a lot of the issues having to do whether this is a good part or a possibly bad part of Sierra Madre really does have to do with the urban design of the whole new community. And please keep that in mind, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Catalano. Yes, you may.
D. Alcorn in Grandview, again as a resident of Sierra Madre. I think one of the things that illustrates what's happened here is this is not about a project. There's a design review supposed to go on. This doesn't say the project is going to get done. This is not about the project itself. This is about whatever happens. It may be changed. Other things may happen as a result of all the discussion go on. This is about property rights. They may not end up with this sort of thing. They're already talking about some changes to it to accommodate some issues. This is not about design. It's not about how many houses are going to be. It's not about any of that stuff. This is about a project that we've described quite a bit. It's not about the institutional part of it. It's not about the project. It's about the rights of the Bella Rosa. Also, one other thing that hasn't been brought up is the financial aspect of this. There's a lot of money involved that the city's going to get as a result of this project. I'm not talking about the project, but that's one of the things that hasn't been considered that I think that the city should consider. If this goes up, there's going to be a significant financial aspect to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alcorn. Any other comments? Are you sure? Okay. All right. The more the merrier. Okay, folks on the council, we'll bring this back and we'll deliberate on these proposed resolutions. Who'd like to start?
Mr. Mayor, given that the first three resolutions are standard for an election, would you be open to taking a motion on those three?
I think that's a great idea.
Great. And make a motion to approve Resolution 22-40, 22-41, and 22-42.
Is there a second?
Second.
I don't think we need any further discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, so that brings us to the qualified citizen petition for and the options that we were presented in the staff report.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Parkhurst.
Many people talked about a report. I believe it's a 9212 report, and I think that I'd like to ask the city attorney to put that together for us. Within that report, some of the things that I'd like us to consider is the environmental impacts of both the current proposal and the proposal in the initiative, the benefits of each of the projects, and any potential legal aspects of either of the alternatives. And I had one other thing. Bear with me just one second. As a part of it, as a part of the analysis, can we take a look at the size of the homes? So what they've got in the current proposal versus what would be allowed under the Hillside Ordinance? I think that's it for me.
So you're proposing that as a motion?
A good question. Let's discuss it before we make it a full motion. My motion would be to be a 9212 report. I think we need to discuss what should be in it. So I'm not prepared to make it a full motion. Those are the ideas that I think should be covered in it.
Other thoughts?
Councilmember Parkhurst, did you? I was listening to your list and I had some stuff, but I didn't write it down. Did you bring up legality issues?
I did bring up legal issues. Yes.
And exposure?
What do you mean by exposure?
Well, potential legal cost to defend if there is legality issues.
I guess I thought that was part of it, but I think if we need to call it out, that's fine by me.
Okay. And I don't know if it'd be within the purview of a 9212 to also look at alternatives under Hillside, as you said. Lot size of 2-acre lots on a slope, zone 1, I think it is. I don't know if that's within the purview of a 9212 or if that's something the planning would put together.
Of that myself, so.
So within the 9212 report, we can include a discussion about the maximum development potential. Is that what you'd like?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. So, what size homes? Everyone talks about McMansions, but these would be not even mixed. I would think these would be actual mansions on 2-acre lots, I would think. And then potential SB9 lot splits and ADUs and all those things. I think we need to weigh the two different.
We can provide estimates of what the unit count would be under the base density, as well as what the unit count would be under SB9, if you were to include lot splits and maximum development under SB9. We can also include an analysis of maximum square footage.
Okay.
Can I ask you another follow-up? Will we have time to complete this? Okay.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
I don't have anything to add in terms of the parameters of the report. I mean, I guess other than I assume that the baseline for this is to discuss the exactly what the hillside residential zoning requires, as opposed to the institutional current zoning, I guess, as well as the proposed change under the proposed specific plan. So I mean, that's just, I guess, just the baseline, not sort of the extra concerns that have been raised by my colleagues.
I think that's a good point. So, yeah, the level of review authority by the city, right? So we kind of know the level of review authority under the specific plan and what's been going on with the Planning Commission, but if it's hillside residential, what is our review authority there?
Exactly, thank you.
So, does anyone want to put a motion on the table for 9212? Report.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and I just wanted to make a comment really quickly, Mr. Mayor, is just, before taking action on any of the other proposed considerations for resolutions and also putting the petition on the ballot, I just think it's our responsibility and it's part of our due diligence to ensure that we understand the impacts of it, and thus I'm in support of the 9212 report. And is a motion needed for that?
I think a motion would be helpful. Maybe for benefit of the record, I can just recite all the points that are intended to be included in the 9212 report. So if I heard if that's okay.
No, that's fine. I'd be happy to make the motion to direct the city attorney to provide a 9212 report as specified by the different points made today in the discussion.
And those points include the statutory points under 9212, as well as the following: a discussion of the environmental impacts under both the a comparison of the environmental impacts under both the proposal and the initiative, the anticipated financial benefits and other material benefits of the Madre project versus the initiative, a legal analysis of the initiative, a comparison of the level of review authority for the Meadows project versus the initiative, and an analysis of the maximum development potential, both in terms of unit count and in terms of square footage.
And I just want to confirm that when you said the legislative, are you talking about those 8 points that are within our agenda packet on page 3 and 4?
That's correct.
Okay.
So did you make that motion?
Yes, that was the motion.
So is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table with a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask just a process question? So in terms of preparing the report, what then is the method of distribution or report out? What's the process here once the report has been prepared?
So thank you for the question, Councilmember Krebs. Once the report has been prepared, it'll be an attachment to the subsequent staff report that the city clerk will prepare for you regarding this item.
And then it'll be a discussion item at a future meeting?
Correct.
And sorry, I would have another question for City Attorney Garagosian, and just so I understand too, after 9212 report is reported and it comes to City Council, is there a timing concern if we decide to put it on the ballot for the Resolution 2243 for setting the priorities arguments and then also the filing of the rebuttal? Is that something, is there a time concern with that?
So the 9212 report must be prepared within 30 days. If this is going to come before the City Council at their first meeting in July, then that'll be within the 90-day time frame. At that meeting, the City Council can, if the City Council has canceled its August meetings, then it will likely have to make a decision regarding whether to submit the initiative, to place the initiative on the ballot, to call for a special election before the November election, or to adopt it outright without change. And those decisions will need to be made at the July the first meeting in July.
Okay.
Was that your question?
Well, I mean, it would include again, these other discussion items that were on our agenda.
The other resolutions here that are listed do not need to be adopted at that same meeting. They can be adopted. What's the the deadline, City Clerk, for adoption of those other resolutions?
These,
If they're going to be considered.
they have to be approved by early August, so there's time.
Early August, thank you.
So
Thank you.
while the City Council needs to take action on the placing that proposed initiative on the ballot, the other ones regarding the other two resolutions can be postponed.
Helpful, thank you.
Okay, well, that's the last of our agenda items. I'd like to ask if you all can think of anything else for future agenda items.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I know we've had discussion of this previously. I think perhaps in the context of the community services report out, or perhaps the senior commission report out. But just given the public comment that we had today about the dial-a-ride, I think it might be important to perhaps have a discussion about the usage and the allocation of resources and the change in usage over the years, which might account for some of the concerns that were raised.
Yeah, definitely. Good idea. Yes.
So if I may, we brought this up once before, maybe a couple months ago. I think I brought it up, and management analyst Carlson did give us a report, and it's ongoing. And I ran into him after the community, the senior community services, and he's going to present to them. But he also stated that he's still ongoing in that process. But I think that's a great point that we kind of urge him to see what's been going on historically and what could be done in the future. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other ideas? Okay. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned, folks. Thank you.
I was going to ask for a break at 8 o'clock.
Yes, we didn't.
Good meeting, Mayor.
Yeah, productive. Productive.
Oh, yes.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
So this says you received 11?
Oh, it's 2.
2, okay.
Because if you look on the next page, you see
5.
why I did it that way. Instead of marking them off and listing them.
Got it. Good.